This is a video series I'm probably going to be making about ranting and rambling about stuff. So I thought since this topic has gone on recently and with the announcement of Halo coming to PlayStation, I just really wanted to take a step back and just realize how much gaming has changed even from 10 years ago. Cuz, I just never thought this day would come where you could play Halo on a PlayStation console and it just means nothing because Microsoft basically gave up. And you could probably just pin all
Yeah.
that. You can pin all that back on the Xbox One reveal. And but it was more than
hmm
just that, but it was like the dominoes afterwards, like their response and everything. Because
Oh God.
what they were doing wasn't necessarily something that they're doing today. The whole digital thing, like games aren't really on physical discs because now they're doing it like a decade later with Doom, the new Doom game, which if you're watching this years later, it probably means nothing now. It's just outdated. But Doom: The Dark Ages, that's what it's called. Like we have file sizes that are so big, even for 4K Blu-rays, that even though wasn't it like 80 gigabytes for it, but they still just didn't have the full game for that.
Doom the Dark Ages?
Yeah, that one.
I got it. I got the digital download for it. I don't think it was 80 gigs. You might be thinking of a different game.
It was probably another
The full
Bethesda
game was
game because
maybe.
Bethesda's the ones that are doing this. So finding it very interesting that it's basically if Microsoft did this like a decade later, it probably wouldn't have been as disastrous. But there was more than just that. But just like seeing Xbox die and become a third party like Sega did in the early 2000s because they made so many mistakes. In a similar way too, it's just so interesting that
Yeah. It's I think what the Xbox One reveal did was that it exposed a mindset more than anything else because back then they announced the Xbox One and they were already talking about it like this isn't just a game console. It was the all in one. It's meant to be your cable even you're meant to watch your DVD player, which the consoles could already do, but it was like your singular home entertainment system beyond games. And
it
even when they went back on a lot of what they did, like they never let go of that idea really. Because they just they never kind of hunkered down and been like, all right, no, this is our gaming console. Let's treat it as such. Let's make great exclusives for it to sell the console. No, instead, all their games became either really disappointing or live service nonsense. And it was just like this slow death that all came from that initial mentality.
yeah, it's also just the things like comparing that to when they did the PlayStation 3 reveal and that really had a disadvantage on PlayStation for a while that even their stocks even after everything was in the negatives after everything, but they had to bounce back and get goodwill with all those video games. By the PlayStation 4, they were able to make more money. And even though everyone complains about the PlayStation 5 just not having any exclusive games because PlayStation isn't necessarily victimless in this sort of thing, they still apparently got more revenue than they ever had with any other console of theirs. Because
The thing is,
compared to back then, the video game industry has been monopolized and has grown more than any other entertainment industry ever. So, and with that comes people who are wanting to capitalize on that kind of stuff, especially since the standards they do the slow boil frog technique. A lot of times with the Xbox One, for that case, it was throwing the frog into the boiled immediately. And they suffered because of that. But they tried to come back, but they never went full with like a lot of their ideas, especially since, they keep what's the word? I was about to say delay games. No, they cancel games. Like they keep canceling games. They buy studios, they lay them off, and like they close them. It was like a whole thing with EA in like the 2000s and early 2010s. Now Xbox was doing it. I think the idea that it was like we got to monopolize, we got to get all these studios. But once they got Activision, that got people so scared, including PlayStation. It's like, oh no, we'll get Call of Duty still. But that was like a mistake because if they had all that Bethesda and Activision games only on Xbox, you would see a huge difference. But because of that, and like, Microsoft being Microsoft and making like really bold but really illogical decisions, that all that money they bought for doing that, like they gotta accumulate that back in their Xbox and Xbox brand, and so they're basically going third party. It's just the same sort of
Yeah.
thing where they make a bunch of financial mistakes that make no sense, like with what Sega did back in the late '90s. And then, even though they made a good console like the Dreamcast, by then it was too late, and they had to like go third
Mind,
party.
mind if I interject for a second?
Yeah, go ahead.
I do find something interesting with them buying all these studios. Um, if I had to, I know, like, I don't know much about like the internal businesses, but I have to imagine. I wonder if like contractually or there's some sort of ruling that they, you know, don't make all the when they buy up a studio, those studios games don't all just become Xbox exclusives, because I imagine for the people, for like whoever's in charge of those studios, it's like, well, if we sell to you and make our games at these franchises that were multi-console Xbox exclusive, we're cutting our sales
Mm-hmm.
in half. We're losing the PlayStation sales. So maybe part of the deal was, well, we buy you, but you could still sell on PlayStation and not receive that loss. Now, what would make sense to me, once again, not really knowing the specifics, is that all these like Activision, Bethesda, they have multiple studios. So what I imagine is, you have your, let's say Bethesda, Elder Scrolls, which was always multi-console, keep that multi-console. Fallout, keep that multi-console. But then you have then you have part of that studio, like one of those smaller studios, make a new IP Xbox exclusive. And they did that actually with Obsidian, because they made Avowed. But the problem with Avowed, and this is another thing Xbox did that's really, like, once again catered to their downfall, is that the Series S, because it's so much less powerful than the other consoles, from what I've heard, it's really hard. Like, devs hate making games for the Series S. So Avowed, while from what I heard was a competent game, was overshadowed because, well, one, it wasn't marketed that well. B, it's just not technically that impressive. It's meant to be like Oblivion
Mm-hmm.
or a Skyrim, but like the physics engine isn't as like interesting and as immersive as those games were. So it really went under the radar.
It's just another thing. Like two of those things happens to be that games cost way more. Like they over budget themselves, and they take way more time compared to other console failures in the past. Like we used to get games very frequently from multiple different companies, and it wasn't like you needed more manpower for this type of stuff. If you fail in the gaming industry today, it's far more drastic now
Yeah.
because
A
they don't
lot
know
of,
how to budget
yeah.
themselves. Like there are a lot of good indie games that are like cheaper to make that are also very successful. Like wasn't there
Yeah.
that Expedition 33 game that came out and
Yeah, I played it. I played it, beat it. It's one of the greatest games ever made. Like, and it was made like on a fraction of of a AAA budget. And the thing is, it looks like a AAA game. There's like the minor, most littlest things that make it like you could kind of see where compromises had to be made, but it's like completely buried under an incredible aesthetic, an incredible art style, incredible writing, gameplay, all that stuff. The thing is, it excels in all the important things,
Hmm.
and it but it also like it does it uses budget smartly. Like the level design isn't that complex because it doesn't need to be. It's a turn-based game. Once you run into an enemy, it goes into a separate map, all that stuff, right? So they saved a cost there. Now with other types of games, sure, there might be uh different costs that have to be allocated, but it's still possible. But also, like an issue with budgeting, these bloated budgets, it's pure mismanagement. It's not even that it's more expensive because games need to look better, but also like game companies spend so much money and then they'll get an idea going and then they'll scrap the idea because a market trend has changed, or the publisher's like, oh, we don't want to do this now because we don't think that will sell or whatever,
It's
right?
becoming
It's all the
more
kind of corporate
mismanaged.
stuff.
Like corporate people compared to before, it's not like there wasn't like disasters in the past, but they were like nothing compared to what it is now because the bigger you are, the harder you fall. And that's especially the case with gaming today because it's so huge. There's the expectations and everything, especially when someone like Microsoft that keeps making all these games in different studios only to cancel them and like lay off people, especially or like delay it and they come out with like a really underwhelming project like Halo 5 or Halo Infinite. I know we played it a little bit when it launched, and we had like a little fun time for like 5 minutes, and that was fun. But
It was under. It wasn't. It was no Halo Reach or three even. Right.
because they lack
You know.
content, and like it just, I know that game was also delayed like a whole year and everything because people were like disappointed because it wasn't graphically up to par. There was like gameplay stuff that people still don't like. That's what they're also not liking about that announced remake for Combat Evolved. Like they don't like that they're just reusing assets from Infinite and different like artistic choices and everything that are more
It does.
apparent about the 343 games.
Yeah.
But
It
also just
lacks
like
the.
they're using the what is it like different engines because that's a whole thing with Unreal Engine 5 for a lot of games that people like use and it's like that's a whole different discussion. But the other thing
Yeah.
I mentioned was actually I don't remember. Now that I think about it, because we went off topic, uh, it's just like it was just like budgets are ballooning and they don't know how to like do that, and they're like canceling stuff over and over again. And the other thing, this is what I was remembering, is because they're going multi-plat. Some like big YouTubers like, oh, that's great, we can have all these games on different consoles. Like, at what point is there any point to owning a specific console if there's nothing else to gain from it? Because is there the services any better than the other, you know, piece of tech? Because I know now that like Xbox has all their big IPs, and I know they don't have every single game they ever made on PlayStation right now, or if they ever will. That's kind of what I was into when I got the Xbox One and the Series X, is because they could have backwards compatibility, and they had some games that they still haven't like put onto PC and all that kind of stuff. So there is something for me to like still hold on to that stuff. But most gamers don't really care about that stuff, especially if they're looking for modern stuff, just like moving ahead. Most people don't really care, especially if they're only not looking for specific games like I do. Like they're more like casual. So to them, what is the point of buying an Xbox when there are a couple of PlayStation exclusive games that also have those Xbox games? And more to the point, the whole increasing the price of that service, the Game Pass, and like
Game Pass
increasing.
was everyone has made the comparison to Costco's hot dogs. It was like the golden goose. A lot of people had Xboxes because the Game Pass was such a good deal, especially for like catching up on older games and such.
Hmm.
But doubling the price. So I remember doing the math for it a while back. But I think it comes up to like 200 something, or not even. It was not 200. It was like
Three hundred
to
sixty
get,
dollars a year.
yeah, yeah, to get the. Sorry, say that again.
It was three hundred
You
sixty
you cut
dollars.
out. Yeah, to get your value back, I think you'd have to at least play five like five whole titles, and most people got that service because it's like, well, I'm only playing maybe a game or two a year. But it's great for sampling games and such, right?
Hmm.
It's just like, because, and if you pay, there's different payment options. Like, it's a huge chunk of cash, and a lot of people are like, well, now it's not
Especially when
worth
they
it.
don't own them.
It's, yeah, in terms of sorry, your point before, you were saying like worth, like the value of getting an Xbox, there is none, because here's the thing, even with the PlayStation exclusives, um like coming to PC, a lot of people are like, well, I want to play those games like day one when they're fresh, or they like the simplicity of a console, because PC you have to upgrade parts, and
Right.
we talk about like the rising cost of consoles. I know PC parts are also becoming more expensive. A it has to do a lot with tech, the tech sector being heavily affected by like the tariffs in the states and stuff, and a lot of tech companies are based in like East Asia, so like China and
And this
stuff.
probably won't even
And
matter if people are watching this, if they even watch this years from now. But I know that's something like our friend Nick would like address. But to him, I want to say that excuse like, oh, it's easier just to get like a console or something versus like every few years you have to get a more expensive PC and have to learn everything. But that's that excuse isn't really working as much as stuff gets worse, especially since things are already going to come to PC eventually, like in a year or two for these console exclusives, and you can just chat with your friends for free on Discord. You can play games online for free. You can have mods attached. You can do other things on your computer than just playing games and all that stuff. You can stream. You can do streaming services. You can do whatever you want on there, and it's like you have a huge backlog and everything compared to like all that other stuff. And it's not like I know that most like people are like, oh, but there's also digital. It's like, well, you know what I mean by that. But like compared to what it was before, it's harder to really say like, oh, PC is just too hard, especially now because I kind of think of it like the same way if you were like to make your own burger at home versus going out to a fast food place and buying a burger sort of things. Like, yeah, you're gonna have to learn how to cook and everything to like get your PC parts and everything. Like, you have to get up in order to do it, and like, oh, but I can mess it up or something might screw up. But it's like, so can like the fast food people over there, and it's not gonna be to what you ever want, and it's just gonna be always that type of thing. It's just like there's more mistakes that the console
sorry,
makes.
I need, all right, sorry, like I need to interrupt again. People, I know what you're saying. At the end of the day, people value convenience. Like, if what
Mhm.
you're saying was true, we wouldn't like McDonald's would be out of business.
Yeah, well, that convenience, like
People
I'm
pay
just
for,
saying that type of
and
convenience.
and
I'm just
and
saying the
and
convenience
I,
is
as I
just not
said, and as I said, PC part, like the price of PC parts is rising exponentially, and hell, sometimes the parts are going out of stock quite quickly that people like
right.
want. So there are like, what I'm all I'm saying is, like, at the end of the day, there are barriers that people don't really care, like, and they have to care enough to like want to make that jump.
Mm-hmm.
Like you can't just kind of, you could list out all the benefits in the world. They only matter if to the person who's actually making these decisions like cares for them.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's
This is
just
to
that is
someone
the
like
reality.
this is to someone like me who cares about video games. Like if they're love playing video games all the time, and I know like consoles are still going to have their place because it's still convenient. Some people are just going to play them, and
Yeah.
they're not really going to care that much about like what the frame rate
I
is
I
or the resolution and stuff
yeah,
like that.
I play games on PC and console. I do prefer I'm playing on console if I can, but there's a lot of games I play on, like for PC. Like when I play games on PC, it's usually like like quote unquote PC exclusive games, so like maybe an MMO or something.
I'm just
Um,
saying is that
but
if even though there are more risks and stuff, like it's going to be like you have to do like more work and it's a hassle as well on PC. It's becoming more. If you were like really into gaming, it's becoming more of like a what is what's the word you would say? Like it's looking more appetizing, especially since like the high end stuff is going to beat out console stuff. Like if you like have a better GPU for this stuff, like have mods for things, like you can have like better like working
I think,
game
yeah,
than we
I
would
think it's
have on
just a
console.
simple. I just think it's a case that you get what you pay for. If you want to pay that extra for the premium experience, you do it. But if you don't really care for that, and you, because at the end, like remember, it's not just, when the money you're not spending is money that is going to something else, right?
Hmm.
So like, there's always an incentive to save for whatever the person's reason, or like let's just say PlayStation, I'm Canadian dollars, right?
Yeah.
Let's just say a PlayStation 5 is 1,000 CAD, and that's assuming it comes with the game, whatever bundle, right? But to make a solid gaming PC, maybe it's 1,700 CAD, or 1,000 or 2,000 CAD. See, some people might go, well, it's only like 700 more in the grand scheme of things. Maybe that doesn't seem like much, but for a singular person, that could be money that goes into the savings account, going towards their school funds, going towards Christmas gifts, right? um that's kind of how you have to treat, like, when people make financial decisions, these are the things that are considered. And I think that's why it's like there's always a place for the cheaper, less premium option.
Right.
And I think that's just life, right? And I think that's where consoles kind of stand. And I
Hmm.
think that's fine. That's great, like,
But
for people to have that option at all.
the thing for me is like getting back to is that for PlayStation and especially Xbox, there's no reason to really own them, like less of a reason to own them now than you had been before because you
Yeah.
would get if you were to play like a PlayStation game, if you wanted to play an Uncharted game, you could only play it on a PlayStation. And same thing for like most Xbox games because I know there was like Halo 1 and 2 on PC a long time ago and all that stuff.
Yeah, no,
Nintendo was the only one that's really just doing their own thing because they're Nintendo. So I'm just thinking
yeah.
about it because like ultimately if there's just like no if Xbox leaves, what happens when PlayStation is just like the only one because they're the only like genuine like gaming where you have like some power to them because Nintendo even with the Switch 2 is not as powerful as a PS5. So they're like getting more like less optimized versions if they ever get them of these games. So
Well, I guess that's the grand question. Will PlayStation stagnate? Like,
more like
if
monopolize
there's,
because it's more because there's no competition with when the Dreamcast that wasn't working and Sega went under and became third party, Xbox was already there to pick up the slack because there's no other like company. It's just like, are they going to make prices even worse from PlayStation? It's the whole monopolizing thing
Right,
that's like
right.
scary, man. Like, I can also like say the same things. Like, well, if people go to PC, maybe they like Gabe Newell will be like, you know what? Let's make Steam $1 billion a year for internet access.
Oh, jeez. That that is something to that's actually a smart thing to consider. In terms of a big player leaving. Um,
It was
the only
the
thing, the only thing. This is gonna sound strange, right? Companies are monstrous in a way,
hmm
but they're also because there's. This is actually something I heard from. So okay, if I might go into a bit of a tangent here, I watch I watch a lot of stuff on books and book publishing. And this famous author was kind of talking about like how if publishers wanted to completely screw over a writer making books for them, they could because they have all the power in the world to do it. And if they're like, we're not going to publish a book, that author, they don't have a writing career, and they could do it so easily. And he literally asked people who worked, like he knew who worked in these companies, why don't you guys do that? Like, we all kind of know companies are greedy, blah blah blah, and they're like, oh, because they could never organize it because they're so massive that to do something like that would mean to have all these arms of the company communicate effectively with each other, and that's literally impossible for them. So that's the fascinating thing. That's like it's the weird side of like corporate culture where we kind of like we could assume what they might the shit they might try to do, but we don't really know. They might not be competent enough to enact these things even with the power vacuum. But then we also know they're very capable of being shitty. We like I don't know, to talk about the state of gaming's the gaming trends have been like the negative gaming trends, the microtransactions, the crunches, the mismanagement, all these issues are consistent and persistent throughout like basically for the last like 2 decades almost.
it's
So
crazy.
it's yeah, it is a toss up. And I think one of the reasons you see so many people, because we're far from the only ones talking about this, is thousands of videos, and it's because we're in a time of insane flux. And I would like to add to that is something that is fascinating with the gaming industry because it is so young
Mm.
compared to like movies and just any other form and television shows, any other form of media, because it like gaming has kind of it rose in like the 90s into the 2000s. It's very modern, and because of that it has faced the same kind of societal like forward momentum that we've seen throughout the years. Like, everyone will be like, for the longest times, you could really see society as going through shifts in big chunks versus now when today, what we see today is not how the world worked in 2015, which is not how the world worked in 2005. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
games have had that evolution too. So they've blasted in terms of progress, but also that means the rules can never be established in a gaming archive, right? Like the preservation of old games is so much worse than it is with like movies and television shows, which aren't perfect either. They're way better than games because there's no like definitive laws around this stuff.
Because video games are so new, even to this day, because of that, we've seen over the few decades how people like more elderly people who don't never like were into video games or never got into video games, they just see it like as the devil, or like the same thing like the 50s with TV, it's going to rot your brain and everything. It's just a new fad for everything because In a lot of ways, the video game industry came up and killed every single other way of entertaining people as a product. It took over books, it took over movies, TV shows, everything. Like, it's the most money accumulated as a product compared to anything else. And it did so very fast. And there was a
Mm-hmm.
middle point where people were either like getting good games. I would say like early 2000s, 2010s was when, even though there was still like mess ups and everything, there was like some sort of like progression there. And between that and like the 80s, like early 80s, like, the gaming crash because there was only like Atari and everything back then. Then Nintendo came. Then Sega was a competitor, and then PlayStation and all these other people came in. And a bunch of them died, but then like three survived, and then Xbox came in. And now, because of a lot of like mishaps, because stuff gets more and more expensive for this type of stuff, because there's more eyes, more CEOs being hired for this type of stuff, more execs that want a bottom line for everything. Like, the eyes have become far more glued to what gaming development is now than ever before. The more you fail, it's more going to impact. It has impacted in the past. I mean, we look at Sega, what happened with them, but it's like sort of like repeating itself in a way, and we're very unsure what's going to happen now because we don't see some other sort of competitor happening, and the way things are going with the whole multi-plat between PlayStation and Xbox, it feels like a chain event. And some people are predicting like the way they're predicting the rapture, like there's going to be another gaming crash. I don't think that's really going to happen because we still have way too many factors to say that's not, like, there's still more balance than there was when it was just Atari and everything, when it was video games were just a fad for a lot of people back then.
No, yeah, it would. I think the claim that there's going to be a video game crash, it's the same as saying there's going to be a cinema crash or like a television show crash. There's too many players in it now. There's too many uh, factors. I think like, and also, admittedly, there's a level of like the the corporate control keeping things like there's certain stability that we're so used to. Now, this being said, the thing is, if there is a video game crash, that probably means that the like everything has gone wrong. So it won't just be video games. Like all of society is probably gone under sort of
It's
situation,
very possible at this point.
which is very likely. I mean, I mentioned CAD. I'm from Canada. Our country, and you're from the States. Our countries are in a literal trade war right now.
Yeah.
It's getting worse.
But the A's
Um,
are more cheap, right? Yeah. So is gas, right?
yeah,
Doing
yeah.
great,
Oh,
guys.
Jesus, everything's okay. Everything's great and dandy. Um, but like, yeah, I get something I wanted to mention too is you kind of sparked this idea when you mentioned the peak, like when gaming was at its peak. And here's the thing, I don't even know if I can agree or disagree because another factor that comes with gaming being new is that like the literature isn't really there. Like you look at the history of film, a lot of it has been like codified and has been kind of permanently set as like in like historical context. Like, you know, you could easily like there's classes you take on the history of film and they break down like this was the era of this and this and this, where right now we do the thing is, when people talk about the eras of games, it hasn't really been officiated yet. It's all like, well, I was there, so I know. Like, what is. There was a time where military shooters were the single biggest thing in AAA gaming spaces. And a lot of people, especially folks our age, know this, but like it's hard for, if you weren't there, it's hard to explain to a new person, hey, well, I say new person, a younger person who maybe was too young at the time getting into games now, to explain like, hey, how this was like the way gaming was. This was just how things were done.
People
And
don't
once again, it's
know.
because,
People don't
yeah,
know or never played a
but
Halo game. You know,
yeah,
people don't
but
know
also,
bunch of these stuff that was like the
yeah.
thing back in the day.
And that is like something that will fix itself, and that we do now have people, we have people making essays, whether video essays or academic essays, people who are kind of turning back the clock and really analyzing games from this like an academic perspective, in terms of like artistry and business and trends and all that stuff. Like, we're getting that now. It will take a while for that, I think, to be as
Oh yeah.
cemented as like film studies are. And hopefully that part of that will be like, we got this solidified timeline of gaming as a medium that we could then use to kind of like keep these games alive in at least that sense, right?
Yeah, because companies don't even see their old games as a thing to keep around. Because I know Capcom recently said like they don't see like preserving the PlayStation 1 Resident Evil games or other games of
The
this
annoying,
sort.
yeah. The thing is, it's because of how games are experienced as a medium, because you're meant to that's the thing. A game is meant to be consistently experienced. With a movie, usually once you watch it once or buy it once on DVD, then a company is like, well, when the next thing comes, you'll just check out the new thing. But with games, it's a really seedy incentive. It's an anti-artistic incentive of, our old games are now our competition. When the new COD comes out, all the microtransactions and stuff is going to be in the new game. So that actually means we want less people playing the old one,
Hmm. Well, there's also just
right?
the idea is that like old bad, new good, even more so than older movies because especially since like because the gaming is so young, but it's also progressed so much, so in so little time that you can understand why some people wouldn't like want to go back and play some of these games. Some most because people be like, "Oh, the graphics look bad. This game looks like a PS2 game," and then I just show them some of the greatest games ever that came out on the PS2. That's still great.
My my favorite video game of all time is Knights of the Old Republic, which runs on a weird like Pathfinder, like D&D esque system that looks so archaic. It doesn't look that fun. Truth be told, the combat, like when actually playing it, not it's not that fun, in that it's all about like number crunching, right? But it's like it's this quintessential Star Wars game, and it's this incredible thing to experience. It's great for gaming history, because if you want to see, it's the game that influenced like Baldur's Gate 3. Like, the modern day great RPGs are influenced by Knights of the Republic, and I want, like, it's great when people play it, but I can't blame them when they actually get their hands on it and they're like, well, like, I'm not having that much fun in the
Yeah,
combat, and fighting is what you do most of the time, right? And that's because, like, yeah, like, things have progressed since that. Like other RPGs have done combat better than KOTOR, the same type of combat better than Knights of the Republic to a significant degree.
yeah. But it isn't even like you can even say with movies, like even if it's like not going to have the same impact as it was when it was like released, there's still going to be people that appreciate or still like go and see the positives of things because I know the thing that people would say is like it isn't about the graphics, it's about the gameplay and like everything
Yeah.
else about it that people will
But
come to respect
but the
and
thing is,
like see it as a part of history. Same
mhm,
way people like observe films, even if it isn't the most convincing thing compared to modern films, you know?
I'm gonna make a slight counter argument to this because there's a difference between a film that like a great old film and like a great or a great old game. The thing with gameplay is that it can like it advances with technology as well. Gameplay can get better as tech does in terms of just how controllers advanced to be held more like comfortably to make movement easier, all that stuff. When an old movie's good, it's usually because the storyline's good. And the thing is, with that, it's a storytelling is not technologically based. It is kind of immortal in that once you have a good story, it's kind of good forever. Like people can change their opinions on stuff based on cultural context, but there's no way to make it better by having a faster computer or something like that, right? Having a smart pen, I don't know. But with the gameplay mechanics that can be made improved with technology, and that's why it is difficult for people to go back. It's like if you play mostly on a modern control, like modern like games, maybe you like platformers, it might be hard to go back to Mario 64, right? Because like the newer Mario games or platforming games feel better to play for those people.
I think
So
it's
I
also more than just like maybe even if you don't like the gameplay as much as modern games, it's also like the aesthetics, the characters, even the story because it's not like games can't have stories as well and
of course
video games
it's also a
themselves
big
are a
tie.
piece of
Oh,
art and that's
sorry, I would
go
also
ahead.
like to mention.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah,
My
I
bad.
also like to mention. Don't worry. Games are also a bigger time investment than movies.
Hmm.
That's another thing. Especially if you're not really like, let's say, you're struggling with the game. The more you find a game more difficult, the longer it takes you to beat it as well. So
Hmm.
that's another factor too. And eventually, that frustration builds, and it's like, and especially nowadays because of work, like modern day, and I mean for decades, work culture, people have jobs and lives and they only have so much time, and they'd probably just rather play. If you're playing games as recreation, then you're probably just going to play what you enjoy. I think it's 100% worth it to go back and play old games to understand the artistry of games. But the thing is, to appreciate artistry in any medium takes an investment. And investment does mean time. Even if movies are shorter, if you're like, I'm into the artistry of films, you're gonna watch a lot of movies and you're gonna kind of examine them, maybe rewatch them to reanalyze and stuff like that, right? So in terms of how people see video games, I think these are all factors to consider. And it's partially why archival is so difficult because you have to kind of get people to be like, even if you don't hurt, because a lot of people, their decisions are based on their own kind of viewpoints and context specifically. You kind of have to, for archival to be important, you have to kind of, there needs to be a big push towards viewing games as an art form. And that also means to kind of convince the people who maybe see games just more as recreation, even if they're not going to play those old games, you have to be like, hey, you should join us for the good of the medium to push for being able to access old games in an effective manner. We shouldn't have to rely on emulators, which could always be struck by Nintendo or whatever company, to be able to play like old classic Pokemon games.
or let
some of the best
alone
games,
very rare
like
games that cost thousands of dollars on a old like malfunctioning system from 3 decades ago. You know what I mean? Because like some games cost like
yeah,
over $1,000, like
exactly.
they were rare. It's like, man, how am I going to buy this game? Oh, you can't buy it. Excuse me, can I have this game on a modern console? No, you don't want to sell it to me. Or it's like, oh, they lost the license. Well, how am I supposed to play this game? And oh, it's like so expensive. It's like a few months worth of rent. What am I gonna do? Oh no, sort of thing. That's
And
the
it
same
sucks
thing
if
with
you're trying to.
movies. Like it's kind of hard when you want to like broaden your scope for things. It doesn't even like it's not exclusive to video games. It's also like anything really. It's like how am I
Yeah,
supposed to get it because copyright or like the owner just doesn't want to like keep publishing it. Because they
yeah. I said
own the
movies are
rights.
better, but not perfect. Far from perfect when it comes to this
I
stuff.
mean, we're Godzilla fans. It's like we know
Oh,
whenever they just don't like release movies and it like takes years and stuff. It's like, hey guys, can we see those short anniversary shorts? No. When are they gonna come out? Hello. I guess I'll archive them all. You're getting a copyright strike,
hey,
sort
you
of
want to
thing.
try that nifty Godzilla PS4 game? $2,000 on eBay, please.
Oh yeah. Y-
Oh,
And good luck with like older games and stuff. Like if you're like interested in like one or two things about it, just want to give it a try. It's like, oh, you gotta buy the console, then you gotta like buy like because maybe it's Japanese only, so you gotta like get like some sort of like Game Shark thing. Then you gotta get the game, and then you gotta learn Japanese or something like that because they don't have an English setting. Because I know the freaking you can play that City Shrouded in Shadow, but they didn't give the option for an English language or something, even though they pretty much knew that English people would have wanted to play that game.
streaming outside of game streaming is bad for this stuff too when it comes to shows something is wiped off a streaming service and you
Oh
have to
yeah,
turn to piracy.
it's like, what do you
There's a
expect me to
series.
do? It's like I want to watch it. Like, can I buy it? No, you're not gonna let me. It's like,
It's fundamentally archival is necessary if your medium is an art form, because if something is a piece of art, then it deserves to like exist to be viewed at in perpetuity, like for future generations, for the sake of artistic analysis.
especially with
But
these
the
games. Oh, sorry. I was like with these games,
oh, no
like
worries, no worries.
because like it's like some of these like they own the rights to it still, but they're not publishing it anymore. And it's like if it's hundreds of dollars, they're not getting that money if I buy the game for hundreds of dollars, like on eBay. The person that what had the copy in the first place is getting all the money, not the publisher. So it doesn't really
Yeah,
matter at the end of the
and
day.
a lot of it is so like it's just because they don't want to bother to dedicate the resources. Like a lot of people who work in industries like games have said, like, if there was an idea that you thought was a good idea, it has been pitched to be done and was rejected because these guys that like the ground level developers, they have the same ideas that we have and stuff. Like a cool, like, let's just say there's a game that hasn't had a sequel for a long time and they're like, oh, we could make a really cool game out of this. There is a good chance that they have, they formed the idea, they pitched it, and it was rejected for nonsense reasons. And sometimes it is pure nonsense because the shareholders that make the final decisions on what is done and not done, some of them don't even, they're not even from the
Understand.
games industry.
They don't
I
understand
remember.
what they're even like being the leader of.
Mhm. I remember hearing this thing that was like there was a gaming CEO who did like I think they did RPGs, or like the game company they controlled did like RPGs or just like just all sorts of games. and the CEO has been quoted to be like, "Oh, the only games I've ever heard about are like COD and Clash of Clans."
Yep.
And it's like you don't even it's not even a case of they're not like a gamer. It's literally they are completely ignorant about video games as a culture and as like an art form and as even as a piece of like as a realm of technology. They don't know any of this stuff. They just know it makes a lot of money.
You think they would have like some sort of like homework sheet before they get into that company, but no, just
It's just previous experience from maybe they were the CEO of like a carpet company. It's like, well, they know how to make money in theory, and then sometimes they don't. Like sometimes they fail horrendously, but then because they're so successful and have so many connections, they're just tossed off somewhere else.
that's
I
what they
saw a
did
video
with
on
Don Matrick with Xbox. So
I watched the thing where it was a video on Spore. Have you ever heard of Spore?
I've heard about it.
Yeah, like this, like in that video they talked about the CEO of EA is literally the reason why EA is so bad now. It's multiple factors certainly, but a lot of it is like this one guy who was like it took forever for him to get kicked out. And even when I there was a quote where the um the CEO of Activision was like he was like the worst like he called the EA CEO like one of the worst to ever do it, and he was like it was great having him as a CEO of EA because he was so shit and made us look great.
Yeah, that's Activision.
Like that's insane.
Yeah,
But but it does show like it is the people up top. And I'll yeah, just something else too. It's like it is the people up top. There's something some people I've heard this sentiment online and it's ridiculous because they're like these studios get shut down and thousands of people get fired. I actually have heard some folks online be like, and it's not a majority, they're probably rage baiters, but still, they're like, oh well, maybe it's like you ever think maybe they were just bad at their job. If you're telling me an entire like you tell me all the thousands of people were all individually bad at their specific role in the company. Like the guy who made rocks for the terrain was just that shit at making rocks. like like are we serious right now? No, if the company's collapsing like that, it is 100% upper management. If it
it's
is
crazy to
individual
me
people,
that the
get
management
a
or the
few
leaders
fired.
they get the most baffling choices you'd ever think to ever choose. The more you grow up, the more you realize that we do live in cartoonish examples of parody. Like it's not even like a parody; it's just real life.
If the world of big business, it really sometimes it does feels like who is the most like psychotic, inhuman, like maniac, and then they're just put in charge. Usually, I mean, if we're being honest, usually it's because they do scummy things that get them up top really quick. It's like I think there was like literally a lot of the people at the top of businesses are clinically psychopathic, psychopath, like the clinical definition, which is they legitimately don't have emotions. Like they don't feel bad or good about what they do. They just know it's like I'm supposed to get myself higher in a company, and that's all they do. It doesn't matter who they screw over, who they lie to, even if the company itself suffers for their success. As long as they're succeeding, they rise,
Yeah,
and the rest of us are left in their wake.
it is the golden parachute.
Yeah.
It is scary. Like it's sort of like a hail mary. It's like, well, I'm going to leave this grenade for you, all of you. I'm not going to be the one that goes out, sort of thing. I can see that being just an easy way to get out. Just screw everyone over. I was going to like
And
retort is like they
yeah,
couldn't be that dumb to realize that if they make some like your customers mad enough to where they're not going to give you money anymore, that obviously you're still going to have to like make a decision that is in favor of the customer. But no, they could just like leave at whatever they want. I keep forgetting about that. Like they can always like do something that gets them out of trouble. Like what am I thinking? Diddy can't even get life sentence.
yeah, and I mean it's also like, it's the unfortunate like reality that the most profitable thing a company can do is usually it's not always uh the thing that's good for the customer. Microtransactions are the perfect example. Microtransactions in any game they are in usually makes a game worse. They are in there because microtransactions also present an infinite source of money from individuals. A single person, instead of now when you sell a game, then you're not just only making this $60 from a single person. They could spend literally as much as they can and want to. So a single person can now make you $1,000. And the thing is, you might lose business on people who don't buy a game because they don't like microtransactions. They will be made up for by the people who do. And truth be told, there's a lot like, you know, for the people who do kind of dive into microtransactions,
Yeah.
um, some of them we know through various studies. Get things like gambling addiction leads into that. Some people are ignorant or even like they don't realize what they're doing because maybe you spend $20 every 2 weeks. Let's say you get paid bi-weekly. $20 is nothing for like some people, but you multiply 20 by the weeks and weeks and weeks going into years, maybe for a couple of years, and the company has made so much money from someone who didn't even know what they were doing. Like they were doing that, didn't even know how
Right.
much money they could have saved. Like, and that's a lot of businesses, but because they're making so much money off the microtransactions, of course they all want them there. Like like all these companies want microtransactions in their games for that exact reason. It's too tempting. It's too much money left on the table if they don't.
Especially
Even though,
they got to do that for like the
yeah,
Game Pass. That's why they're doing it. It's like they're getting the
Mhm.
people that will stick around or at least until it dies. That's why Call of Duties aren't as popular anymore, but the people that stick around for those microtransactions are still there. But the other thing is that the study about like only like they only like people only buy 2 games a year now. Like eventually, like if they keep doing this for like paid games and they keep doing like the budgets for something like when Concord spectacularly failed and stuff like that,
oh
they
yeah,
if they keep making these type of games and like with microtransactions and all this sort of thing, like everyone's trying to get a piece of that pie and they all start failing, is like eventually because customers will like consume like 1 or 2 games a year and do like microtransactions for that. But when you add the fact that these are like yearly sort of things, it's like they're not going to get like these companies are not all going to be getting all this money all the time now. Like in a way, that is like a very downward slope that will eventually become a small downfall where a lot of companies won't be able to like get that because the more anti-consumer and they expect just a few people to like be what keeps them up float, eventually as things go on and things get more expensive for people and it's not as much of a luxury anymore, that is going to be what kills them in the end. It's possible that
and it
isn't the case, but I could see that
yeah
happening for a lot of things.
yeah and it Yeah, it always varies, and I think what we'll see. Like, here's the thing: I say all this about many companies and corporations, but there's always like factions within factions and stuff. Like, what I mean is, we will have studios that will always try to make good games, or maybe like they'll maybe inconsistent, but they'll release some good games to stay afloat, or ones will fall and we'll see new ones rise. There are like, hell, here's a funny example. We mentioned Doom earlier. Doom: The Dark Ages was a solid game, and the funny thing is, in terms of like artistic integrity, they changed up the gameplay from Eternal because they literally said we could have just done Eternal again and people would have been fine, but we wanted this game to have a distinct artistic vision, so we changed the gameplay. And even though not everyone might like it, it's not based on the thing is the gameplay they created wasn't based on a market trend or something like that. It was, we wanted the game to feel a very specific way, and we did our best to make it that happen. And people have different opinions whether to see it or not, but the point is that that decision has artistic merit, and that's the mindset you want game studios to have. And I think there will always be certain studios that do have that in mind.
You just gotta look for it now more often than not.
Yeah, and like, to a level, it's unfortunate that we have to kind of engage in that, but you do. We are forced to be smart consumers. You have to kind of sniff out, like, pay attention to reviews, kind of sniff out what's good and what's not. You can't, like, it sucks that, like, you can't just kind of go off a vibe or even a preference, like,
Hmm.
in a weird way, because it's like, I like a certain genre game. I like RPGs. Well, you now have to be like, okay, well, if I just get every RPG I see on the market, I'm probably going to buy a lot of shit Ubisoft games, right? Like, you kind of have to search around those, but it is doable. Um, and the internet's at our fingertips. We have all the resources in the world. It's possible. It's very possible. But because of that, gaming as a medium, artistic and financial, it's not dying anytime soon.
There are just times where it does seem like it's pointing that way, though.
Yeah, yeah. Well, like, I think, like I said, if gaming dies, that probably means a lot of facets of society have collapsed with it. If gaming dies, it will probably be the least of our concerns.